Commission Public Safety Committee for our November meeting. And at this time, I'll be reading a statement. This is the meeting of the Public Safety Committee. It's being conducted electronically pursuant to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order 16. I would ask for a motion that conducting the meeting electronically is necessary to protect public health, safety, and welfare in light of the coronavirus. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
Have the motion made.
Second.
Have a second? Second. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Gammon?
Yes.
Mr. Gurley? Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner P?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you, and we'll let that serve as a roll call because we have all commissioners accounted for this evening. We have 3 that are coming in by virtual way, and then we are in good shape for this evening's meeting. Glad to have everyone that is here, and we'll begin with our probation report. Okay. Tell you what, before you do that, you can come on up here, that's fine. I did skip over the minutes, and our secretary has, as she kindly does, reminds me of things at different times. So we'll ask for the approval of our minutes from the last meeting. Mr. Vice Chairman.
Chairman, I have reviewed and looked at the minutes from the October 26th meeting, found them to be in order and approved, and asked for such.
Okay, we have that motion. To have a second?
Second.
Have the second. Call the roll.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather? Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we can go on with your report. Thank you.
Thank you. For the October report for the probation department, our total expenditures for the month of October was $144,342.48. The total revenue collected by the clerk's office with the circuit and general sessions court combined was $7,296.72, giving us a total revenue for the month of October of $19,108.48. With those expenditures versus the revenue, that gave us a difference of $125,234. The amount of money that was turned over to be collected by the clerk's office for the month of October was $6,650. Those that failed to enter a payment agreement, that revenue added up to $8,867. So far this fiscal year, those monies that have been turned over to the clerk's office for probation fees totals $47,444.50. The revenue loss that was turned over to the clerk's office, however, that person did not follow up with a payment agreement, totaled $48,372.75. And that would be my report.
Any questions anyone may have on the report? Any questions? If not, do we have a motion to approve the report?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve.
Commissioner Gurley makes the motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Commissioner Gammon, please call the roll.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you. Our Correctional Work Center report. Good evening, sir.
Our report tonight is fairly short. We've had no real changes from the last report. Populations staying about the same. Our work release program still going strong. And we've been doing a little extra work on the highways, the interstates. We had to slow down for COVID for a couple of weeks, but we're COVID-free and we're back on track now. And that's pretty much everything I have tonight.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I heard let's say,
I had a
Commissioner
question
Fee.
for him. Yeah,
Commissioner Fee?
you said you were COVID-free, so there are no inmates or officers at
Yes, sir, that's
the
correct.
Correctional Work Center that have COVID?
No, we're clear of all COVID cases.
Wonderful. Thank you.
We're talking about the litter pickup on interstate. Are you seeing any kind of reduction as far as, or are you seeing it picking up?
We're picking up a lot of trash. For instance, just last week, we specifically concentrated on, if you take the 24 exit going towards Wilson County on 840, we concentrated specifically on that area. And we got a call from the state today asking us to go back out there because over the weekend, and this just finished up Friday, it was trashed again to, just a level that was just ridiculous. So we're picking it up, but they're putting it down as soon as we pick it up.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I've been trying to urge, and I think that the Public Works Committee is prepared to really get serious about this and increasing the fines. So at the next meeting, it might be good if maybe you could come and attend and talk about the problems and where you're seeing them, because we're never going to get there unless we put some teeth in. People are going to continue to throw it out if it's only $25 or $50 fine.
Exactly. We were just talking about that the other day. You see a lot of construction trash, a lot of things that aren't coming from people's houses. Sometimes it's
Cheap rock.
Yeah, it's like it's coming out of people's places that are remodeling.
But see, we're not taking that, and that's why we've got to try to change that, Mr. Chairman. We just because it's never going to be ending if we don't start finding people and then finding a way to take that construction debris as well.
That's why I asked that, because I'm getting a lot of that comment about that. And I mean, I was at a turkey shoot Saturday that some of the other individuals was here there too, and I had that complaint come to me, when are we going to start putting some teeth into this, because the way people are. And I get those calls continually too, and I just noticed on local roads, in fact, I drove past the convenience center where I am, and it's just down the road from it, people had thrown out there, and the convenience center was open. And it was things that the convenience center takes.
Yeah.
And it had been dumped that day. And so Mayor, I totally agree that we have got to do something there, because it's just not, people don't care.
At any point in time last week, we probably had anywhere from 20 to 30 inmates specifically concentrating on trash on the interstates with multiple crews. But like I said, it's a problem when as soon as you clean it up, it was so bad that the state called us immediately, said, we're getting complaints already about this, and we know you just picked it up, because they were out there when we were picking it up. So it's bad.
Tell the state it's time for them to bring out Tennessee trash again. And try to work on this, but we appreciate that. Any other questions that anyone may have?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner
I've
Rather?
dealt with the same thing in my district, and I'm not putting blame on anybody, but the codes department, in my mind, does a really good job. But and they give people some time. And when you're littering or whatever the violation is, at a certain time, they get cited. I spent last week in a meeting with someone that got cited. But when it gets to the court level, they give them more time and more time and more time, And that's where the teeth comes in, when that phase of it stands up and said, here's what it's going to cost you. Because I think the codes office does its part. So I just want to put that out there. I also want to say that I was reading on here earlier about TCI inspection, and you're COVID-free, and TCI inspection, apparently they were bragging on y'all. No deficiencies, so job well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rather. Anything else? Commissioner Gammon?
Mr. Chairman?
I want to concur with that, but the thing I want to say is on the interstate, I do quite a bit of traveling between here and Williamson County and all through the county, especially interstates, 840, 24 and everything. The thing that bothers me is it's bad enough for the law enforcement people out there that their lives are on the line every time they stop a car or do anything. But I have seen and noticed you got these prisoners out there with, the pickup vehicles, and they're doing a great job. I mean, you'll see hundreds of bags on the side of the road and large stuff. But, gosh, they have to pull up there also and put their life on the line to get this trash up. So something does need to be done. I've noticed a lot of trash myself. So if we need to make a motion, go forward or something, I'm all for it. But we're going to have to do something to stop this stupidity that's going on the interstate. Somebody's going to get killed.
Okay, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Phillips?
Thank you. My memory is not going to be exact, but in the neighborhood of 10, 12 years ago, the steering committee undertook a study that lasted between 6 and 9 months and put together a litter ordinance with the help of the Rutherford Neighborhood Alliance. A lot of work went into it. It was a pretty comprehensive ordinance that the steering committee put together on, it was in essence a litter law, but we called it a litter ordinance for Rutherford County. After it was all said and done, the thing was final, and it did not make it out of steering, simply because it appears that some of the steering committee members back at that time were opposed to it because of, quote, an enforcement issue, that it would be hard to enforce it and who's going to enforce it and those kinds of things. It might be worthwhile to brush that ordinance off and take another look at it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Anything else anyone might have?
I don't mean to keep gabbing, but I'm going to tell you something. Maybe we need to get into a situation. I know I've talked to Mayor Catron. He's talked to me. That maybe we need to set a standard out there for Joe Blow citizen to call in these complaints if they can be backed up. And if they see somebody dumping, it can be looked into in some form or fashion by somebody. Now, I'm not saying necessarily sheriff's office, because they got a lot going on too. But I'm just saying something's going to have to give at some point. We're growing. Trash is going to keep getting dumped. And I mean, a lot of trash. Mattresses and this and that. My God.
But we have, Mr. Chairman, cell phone cameras are a lot more available and prevalent today than what they were, when this ordinance was put into place. So a lot of people are watching more now. So it's an educational process. We'll have to go through, but we need to do something.
I agree. Well,
Mr. Chairman, it may be good that we go ahead and since everyone seems to be in favor of doing something, I'll make a motion that the litter ordinance that was actually went through the steering process, and I can't remember the year, but it was 10 or 12 years ago, through the steering committee, that be pulled back out and sent back to the steering committee with some directions to revisit that thing over the next few months or the next year or so. I'll be glad to help in that as well.
okay, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Is there discussion?
Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner P.
I may be the only member on Public Works, and we have discussed this, and we've actually had our judge come to us and explain some of the laws that are associated with fining people. There's some difficulties with the fines. I think that's something that can probably be worked out, but definitely Public Works has been looking at this, and we are concerned about it. So, I'm in favor of what Commissioner Phillips is asking.
Commissioner P is absolutely positively right. We spent a lot of time. I chaired that committee back in those days, and we spent a lot of time just agonizing over the meat of that ordinance. I think most of the committee felt like that you just couldn't put something in place. It had to have some enforcement behind it and some fines that were associated with it. But when it came right down to it, and most of the committee members, it was not unanimous, said that pretty much it'd be up to the sheriff's department to enforce those litter laws, and it would be extremely difficult to ask those people to do that. I'm not saying that was right or wrong. I favored taking it out of steering and presenting it for the full commission, but that did not happen. So it was a pretty comprehensive plan. It was a number of pages, 10, 12, 15 pages, that dealt with even issuing citations for people who had trash on their property and letting that trash build up. So it bears another look, and we don't have to look at that document. And also maybe wise for the Public Works Committee too, just to take a look at something like that before it went to steering, to see if they had any ideas that it went into it. So maybe Public Works needs to take a look at that ordinance and see if that's something that they want to forward to steering or not. I think that might be a better approach, just to get more than the steering committee involved in it.
Well, Commissioner Phillips, you want to change your motion in some way?
Yeah, let me amend that motion or withdraw it and make a new one to where we dig that ordinance out that was put together 10, 12 years ago and forward it to Public Works to take a look at it and see if what they think about it, and let them do with it what they want.
Do you wish to amend your second?
I agree.
Withdraw, okay. And you'll second his motion now as changed?
I do.
That it goes to Public Works. Okay. Would you like to read that motion as it's been changed, Madam Secretary?
Motion to pull the litter ordinance back out and forward to Public Works for review.
That's pretty much it. Thank you.
All right, that's the motion that we have. Call the roll.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Okay, that motion carries. Anything else in your report?
No, sir.
All right, we got to approve your report. So I have a motion to approve the report.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion
Second.
made by Commissioner P. To have a second.
Yes, second.
Okay, second Commissioner Gurley. Call the roll.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, juvenile detention report. Okay.
Good evening. Before you, you have our usual reports for the month of October. What did not make the written agenda is that I have 2 agreements that I need to talk about tonight. I do think it made it to the computer. But in general, everything is moving along. We do have some checks that have come in that have not posted to our report. I don't have any outstanding out-of-county money that I am concerned about, just the usual lag in bill time and monthly report time. As far as the reports are concerned, I'll happily answer any questions that you have about those.
Any questions on the report?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. P.
Yeah, I wanted to ask the director, what about the COVID situation in your facility?
We do not currently have any youth that have tested positive for COVID. I just found out this morning that I do have an employee that has tested positive. The employee had not been at work for several days prior to having symptoms and has not returned to work since they had symptoms and tested positive, so we feel good about that. Like all the other facilities, we have a pretty stringent cleaning regimen that we're doing multiple times a day, and in general, we feel good about where we're at.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Rather?
Just out of curiosity, I'm looking at the numbers. The behavior intervention. For the last 3 months, you've had 25. In the month of October, you've had 60. Is behavior a problem? Is it changing? What? That number just jumped off the page at me.
Right, so what has happened is that we've had several incidences where there are unrelated groups of multiple co-defendants, and we do the best we can with keeping our co-defendants separate from each other. But if they get into like a verbal argument on a housing unit, they'll write it up as an incident. So what you're seeing may not be a physical altercation, but maybe something verbal. But we tend to over-document as opposed to under-documenting, and we've had a lot of chatter on the housing units because of our groups of co-defendants.
I was just curious if, people are getting kind of stressed and fed up and every other emotion you can think of, and I just wondered if you're not seeing that here with juveniles.
I don't think that's what it is. A lot of the kids that we have an inordinately large amount of young people that are charged with murder or attempted murder, and they are just stressed because of the length of time that they're being detained in general. But it's just more of those charges than we may have had in the past, I think.
Thank you.
Anything else? Do I have a motion to approve the report? Motion has been made to approve. Do I have a second? Second. Commissioner Sereno, call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. And I believe you have a service agreement?
I have 2. So the first attachment should be a business associate agreement with Youth Villages, and I'll talk about them separately, but just in general, the second one is also with Youth Villages, and it is for specialized crisis services. Our facility has had a relationship with Youth Villages for many, many years. Nothing has changed except for that they are interested in doing some online interactions with the youth instead of in person, just to keep their employees socially distanced as much as possible. So in order to set up the crisis services service agreement, we needed to also take a look at their general business associate agreement, and that's why you have both. Nick Christensen with the county attorney's office has looked at these. He's made a couple of minor adjustments. They've been going back and forth on these agreements for several months. I think they've got it like they want it, and this is just to officially on paper allow us and the Youth Villages Agency to they're going to provide us a laptop on which we can do, just to keep it simple, some Skyping between them and youth in our facility that need any kind of individualized crisis services. The laptop is free. They do not charge for their services. This is just to allow us to accept that laptop and have that type of an agreement with that agency.
Okay, these are two separate agreements.
Yes, they are.
One is for specialized crisis, and then the other
It's just their normal, regular
other.
business associate agreement.
Right. So we will have to vote on those separately since they are two separate agreements. Any questions on the agreements? I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll take the service agreement first. The specialized crisis service agreement first. Do I have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
A motion to approve it. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have the second. Call the roll.
Commissioner P.,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. And now I'll take a motion to approve the business associate agreement.
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Serino, do we have the second?
Phillips.
And Commissioner Phillips. Call the roll.
Commissioner Sherino,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner P.,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is pause. Evening, sir.
So for the month of October, we had 569 animals come into the shelter. You can see that we had a euthanasia rate of 4.4%. Our live release rate for dogs was 92.8%, and for cats was 95.6%. Once you figure in wildlife, we had a 93.2 overall live release rate. We had 2,879 people come into the shelter during the month, 1,867 logged calls and voicemails, and our officers handled 1,785 calls, traveling 12,785 miles. Fiscal year to date, we've had 2,320 animals come into the shelter with a live release rate of 92.6%. We've handled almost 67,000 calls and traveled a little over 51,000 miles. On your rabies exposure and bite report, you can see that we had 34 bites reported for the month. One of those was sent for rabies testing, came back negative. We had 5 other exposure for the month. One of those was sent for testing as well, and it came back negative also. Just on a side note, when it comes, this is under rabies, but there's no exposure and no bite. We did start during October working with USDA. They placed a freezer at our facility, and any wildlife that comes in, they pick that up after it's been euthanized, and certain things by state law have to be. They're picking those up and they're testing those for rabies, even though there's been no exposure. They're looking for, there's a couple different types of rabies, actually several, but what they're looking for is there's a raccoon variant that's mainly along the East Coast, and USDA has been doing a lot of work to try to keep that over on the East Coast and make sure it's not coming into Tennessee, especially Middle Tennessee. And they're testing those. The ones that they did pick up in October, 2 of those did come back positive for rabies, but it was not this raccoon variant. It was the skunk variant, which is what we see here in Middle Tennessee. So just wanted to make you aware that they were doing that testing. The last page of your report is the just the graph where it shows visually the live release rates and euthanasia rates. Back, I guess it's been 3 months ago now, you all asked us to take a look at our rules and regulations and come up with some changes. Just wanted to update you where we were in that process. The county attorney and I have spoken on several occasions regarding that. We have another meeting scheduled for next Wednesday. We had submitted some changes based on their guidance, and they're reviewing those, and I hope to have that to you a couple of weeks in advance of the December meeting. That way you all can go ahead and start reviewing that for discussion then. And that's my report, sir.
Any questions on the report from anyone? If not, I'll accept the motion to approve the report.
So moved. Move to approve.
Got a
Rather than Gurley.
we've got a commission to approve from Commissioner Rather, and I think Commissioner Gurley seconded that. Call the roll.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you all. Have a good night.
Sheriff's report.
The report is pretty remarkable, staying a lot like it has been the last several months. Right now, I think we have 762 inmates. There's 0 COVID with the inmates, but I think the sheriff has the latest number. Our employees are getting hit right now pretty hard, so I'll let him come up and give you those numbers. The report is not much different than what it was last meeting.
Any questions on the financials anyone might have? If not, Commissioner Rather,
Move to approve.
have a motion to approve the report, the financial report. Have the second.
Second.
Okay, call the roll.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Okay, thank you. On the sheriff.
Employees.
Yeah, sheriff can come up. I heard from the entire department early this morning.
Yeah.
It
was early, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Okay, on our COVID response, we've tested 1,543 inmates on COVID. We've had 103 positives since February. Presently, we have 0 positives in our inmate population. As far as our personnel, we've got 5 out positive right now. 1's quarantined because of a positive test in the family. We've had 2 exposed who are out and have been tested, and we've got 1 with symptoms out, for a total of 10 out right now. The ones that have exposed or symptoms have been tested, and we're waiting on results right now. So that's where we stand at the sheriff's office. That's out of 480 full-time employees. So about 0.25, something like that.
Any questions for the sheriff?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, I believe we're ready for public safety, and we'll ask for the director to come forward this time. Good evening, sir.
I believe we have your report where you can see that, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that concerning that report. I will, I guess, announce that a lot of these things that you're seeing on TV as far as the gloom and doom, the bad results in other parts of the nation, so far that's not the case in Rutherford County. I've been in constant contact with the hospitals, our public safety personnel that is being managed as of right now. We do have an elevation of COVID patients in our hospitals. However, it has not inundated our hospitals or our public safety. It is out there. It is very contagious. However, I don't want to frighten our Rutherford County citizens to know that all the gloom and doom that you see on TV is not the representation of our county.
Any questions for the director on this? Have his report. Anything from his report that you might have? I'll tell you what, we'll go ahead, Chris, and approve your report, and then we'll go into the grants that you have there, as well as the, I believe you had to amend the Rutherford County Hazard Mitigation Plan too, I think it's in there.
Yes, sir.
But let's go ahead and approve the report. Do I have a motion to approve?
I so move.
Commissioner Sereno, do I have a second?
Second.
We have the second. Call the roll.
Mr. P?
Yes.
Mr. Gorley?
Yes.
Mr. Gammon?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Sereno?
Yes.
Mr. Rather?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Okay, I believe you got to amend the Rutherford County Hazard Mitigation, is that right?
Yes, sir. Rutherford County Emergency Management has deemed the Rutherford County Highway Department located at 1510 Rutledge Way, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, 37129, a critical infrastructure to the county. In the event of a disaster or emergency, ESF-1 Transportation, which is the Highway Department, is responsible for clearing roadways, making accessible for first responders and county citizens, and conducting damage assessment to the critical transportation infrastructure in the county. The Highway Department facility serves as a relocation site for several county offices with a continuity operations plan within the jurisdiction. And Rutherford County Highway Department is responsible for 969.32 miles of roadway and stores several thousand gallons of fuel to support operational functions. The Highway Department facility also serves as a relocation for several county offices with the continuity of operations plan within this jurisdiction. For the Highway Department to utilize a hazmat mitigation grant funding, the county has to identify the Highway Department facility in the building in the county hazardous mitigation plan for critical infrastructure.
I believe you all have copies of that. You've received it through SharePoint. Any questions on that mitigation plan?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve this.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have the second. Call the roll.
Phillips? Or Girl? Okay, Gammon.
Mr. Gammon?
Okay, thank you. Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. All right, I believe we've got the FY20 grant.
Yes, sir. This is a contract between us and the state, EMA, and the county grant contract for 2020. This was approved some time ago. I think this was way before my time. However, we have submitted everything. We received a contract back for approval.
We're just approving the contract?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have a motion to approve this contract?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Have that motion to approve. Commissioner Rather, have a second?
Second.
Second. Commissioner Sereno, call the roll.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. And 21, is that correct?
Last but not least, this will be the same grant for 2021. This is pretty much an annual event that provides emergency management operational funds through the state. There's certain obligations that we've got to fulfill in our office to receive these grants. We've been successful every year, and we're applying again this year. Again, that was a 50-50 grant.
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion approved. Commissioner Phillips, have a second?
Second.
P.
Have second. Commissioner P, call the roll.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Okay, sir.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Right, ambulance report. Yes, sir.
Chairman, is it okay if I go ahead and let Denise and Debbie? Okay.
All right, I've got the budget amendment request, and this is a request within our own budget, and we've used more part-time personnel this year, and we're requesting to transfer $50,000 from 118-55130-133, which is our paraprofessionals, into 118-55190-169, and that's our convalescent part-time payroll. And we are also requesting to transfer $10,000 from 118-55130 into paraprofessionals into the overtime 55190.
Okay, this is a result of the COVID, with
Yes,
employees being off on leave and for COVID. And
a lot of it.
okay. Any other questions on this budget amendment? If not, I'll call for approval of this budget.
So moved,
request.
Mr. Chairman.
We have that request. Who made that? Commissioner P?
Yes.
Second.
Second. Commissioner Gammon, call the roll.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Okay, thank you. And I believe, good evening.
Good evening. Director Hudgens wanted me to give you a couple of highlights from the medical examiner's office side of our affairs. As you'll see from Director Hudson's formal report, October has continued to be busy for us in regards to medical examiner cases. We had 100 exactly reports of death requiring some form of investigation by the medical examiner's office and investigators. November's also continuing with those high numbers. We've had to date 68 medical examiner investigated deaths this month. In regards to autopsies, we're again continuing to be busy. We've had 38 sent for autopsy in October, and we've had 18 to date in November. I wanted to update the committee in regards to the Coverdell grant that our office was successful in being awarded. We were unfortunately disappointed to learn from the purchasing committee meeting held on November 17th that we did not receive any bids for our examination room remodel. So we have regrouped. We are going to attempt to increase our exposure for that RFP with the hopes of gaining or encouraging some bids from our local construction companies. Since we know they're very busy, we're going to highlight the fact that our deadline for the grant funding will allow us up to September 30th of 2021. So we're hoping that with that highlighted, that they might be able to bid on this in the spring of next year. So the purchasing committee did authorize us to send out the RFP for bid again, which we are working on currently. Thank you.
Any questions anyone might have? Okay. Director.
Okay, get on to the ambulance side. For the month of October, we had 3,229 111 calls, 63 hospital transfers with a total of 3,292 calls for the month. Response time was 6.7, average response time was 6.7. We had 100 deaths that we investigated. We received $2,500 on those investigations. We sent 38 of those for an autopsy, and we paid $74,480 for that month. Year to date, we've had 134, and year to date, we've paid $262,640 for autopsies. On the collections, we billed $1,589,026. We've collected $658,137. Year-to-date collections are at $3,003,863. Projected collections are at $9,011,589. We're at a 63% collection rate. Insurance write-offs were $556,052, and other write-offs were $484,917. And on the next page, you can see we had a couple of in-services, and Denise had some death investigation classes. And also our public relations going out to the community is picked up regardless of the restrictions at the schools and stuff like that. We're still very active in helping the community. On the next page is our non-emergency side. We had 454 calls. We had to decline 61. We've billed $333,164. Collected $116,164. Year-to-date collections are at $444,487. Projected collections are at $1,333,461. Got a 96% collection rate. Insurance write-offs were at $212,263, and other write-offs was $3,557. And on the next page, next two pages are letters we received from Vanderbilt Life Flight on status of the couple of patients that we have flown out. And also I received a thank you letter. This was reported to me prior to getting this thank you letter, and I was actually concerned that it would wind up being a complaint. A couple of our paramedics were working the MTSU football game, and Miss Ashley Archer and her family were at the game, and there was someone undesirable interrupting where they couldn't enjoy the game, and our paramedics kind of intervened and softened that situation up. And I actually got a thank you letter for it, so I'm very proud of those boys. That's exactly what I would expect out of them, and these two doesn't surprise me that they did it. So that was Casey Horn and John Brittle. And also, I want to congratulate Shanna Tanner and Matthew Aarons and our dispatcher, Penny Barrett, for receiving the Walmart and Sam's Club Lifesavers Award. And there's a brief story on there about what they did and had a good outcome for their patients. And on the next page is their pictures. And Mr. Chairman, before I finish up, over the last year I've gotten to know the department heads pretty well, and believe it or not, even on the EMS side, we all have business with each other. And I just want to commend a few department heads, and I'd like to start with Ed Elam, and then Sonia Stevenson, and Lisa Nolan, who've been a huge help for my department, and even just for some advice on how to make my department run better. And they've all just been a tremendous help, been very open in welcoming me, and I just greatly appreciate it. And also last month, Trish Breeden had an open house at her department, and I had a chance to go, and it was really impressive. And I think Commissioner Steve Irvin would have been very proud of what she's done with that. And everybody knows that me and Commissioner Irvin were very good friends, and I believe it'd be proper for me to speak on his behalf that he would be very proud of what you've done, Trish. And that's my report, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Any questions for the director? Commissioner Rather.
Mr. Chairman, I've sat through this meeting for the last probably 3 times, and I've hesitated in saying anything, but I just really want to, from a personal standpoint, commend our EMS people. I had to call them with my father-in-law, and had they not got there when they got there and got him to the hospital when they got him there, the doctor said he would have died, and that was because of our EMS. Probably one of my best friends' son OD'd, and EMS got there within a very short 4 or 5 minutes, transported him. Unfortunately, he didn't survive, but an EMS supervisor was in that family room and brought an unbelievable amount of comfort to that family. The words she spoke and the hug she gave, and even the look on her face, was full of compassion, and I've had personal experiences. Every time I see an EMS, an ambulance driving down the road, I'm very proud we have those from Rutherford County.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that, and I will pass the word on to her.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Commissioner Serino?
Yes, me too. I had the couple of family told me, when they get sick or something, when they call the ambulance and they get them served. The service is wonderful, and they appreciate so much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gammon.
Without carrying on with all the compliments, which I 100% agree with, I've worked with Carl and many other people, not taking away from his title or anything, but we've been close. We work very close together, and I got to say, I'm with Mr. Rather. I've got to deeply compliment the dedication and professionalism of these people, and it all goes back to what the leadership is. Period.
Thank you, and I appreciate it, and we're going to improve every day. So I appreciate the support from this committee also. Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the report? Have the motion, Commissioner Gammon. Have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Commissioner Serino, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Serino?
Yes.
Commissioner Reither?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you. Appreciate it. Fire and rescue. Come in, Captain.
Good evening. Hey, Adam Rose, Chief Farley's on vacation. For the month of October, we had 3 structure fires, 5 vehicle fires, 278 EMS related calls, 38 motor vehicle accidents with injuries, 18 motor vehicle accidents without injury, and 4 extrications. That gives us a grand total of 540 calls for the month of October. On the next page, you will find that this is our calls for the year up to October. We had a total of 60 structure fires, 35 vehicle fires, 2,713 EMS calls, 340 motor vehicle accidents with injuries, 266 motor vehicle accidents without injuries, 36 extrications. We also had 22 water rescues. That gives us a total of 5,288 calls. The next page, you will find a grand total for all our departments within the county. That includes Amelville, Kittrell, Las Casas, Christiana, and Eagleville. If you'll go all the way down to the side, you'll see that the county had a total of 6,542 calls. You can also see the amount of training hours each department had for the year up to date. The next page, you'll find that these are the addresses that we've submitted to the codes department for structure fires. Last page, we had 3 investigations for the month of October. You can go down through there and see the reason for the investigation and the outcomes. Also, at the very bottom of the page, most importantly, we've installed 28 smoke detectors year to date. This is one of the things that that you guys probably already know about. We have a grant to go out and install smoke detectors. It's super important. It's free to the community. If they can just look up, get on the website, call the office, we can schedule a time to come out and put up smoke detectors. This is critical for people who maybe not can't afford them or need smoke detectors in their home. So very, very big thing right there, installing smoke detectors, and they're free. So, Chairman.
Okay. Any questions on the report? If not, I'd entertain a motion. Anyone?
Move to approve.
Commissioner Gurley makes a motion. Have a second?
Second.
We have the second. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Serino?
Yes.
Mr. Gurley?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Reither?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Captain. Yes. One question, Mr. Chairman.
One question.
before Peter comes up and gives a report on radio, how you liking your radio? New Motorola's.
We're still going through some changes with it. It's going, once we get the system in fully capable and operable, I think it's going to be good. We're still going through some changes that can be challenging. So.
Okay, a little bit smaller. Let's see on your hip.
I'm sorry?
A little bit smaller.
Well, this is a scanner just to kind of carry in public, so that the radios that we're using now are a little bit bigger and heavier. Okay. This is a little bit easier for me to get in and out. And
a different
like
color, aren't they?
I'm sorry?
They're a different color too, aren't
yes,
they?
Yes, yeah. Those other ones are big, bright green, and they kind of pull down on my pants.
Pull your pants down. We don't want that on camera. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Radio system, since we've brought that up, Mr. Rogers, we're in your neighborhood now.
All right, thank you. Quick overview of the report we gave. Last time we were here, we were starting to finish up the microwave installs, and we kind of had a snag. The vendor ordered the incorrect mounts at the sheriff's office, so we had to scrap that idea, and they had to remanufacture the wall mounts. They'd actually shipped roof mounts, which was not in the plan, especially with a new roof being done. So that should be kicked off the week of December 6th, as well as the 2 dispatch centers will start the first part of December. We've completed all the base station mounts for fire and EMS. We're getting with the other vendor to start scheduling all the remaining departments that have base stations to be installed. We've completed 3 volunteer fire departments that have been transitioned over already onto the new system. We've started doing mobiles, and we're continuing moving forward that. It looks like we're going to start the sheriff's office around the middle of December. We've met with them. We're going to get that schedule worked out. So that's a little more harder to get a officer's vehicle in. We're taking them out and try to get them in a spare while we get their new radio mounted in. But we also, last time, we had not heard back from our licensing sign-off in Alabama. We've gotten that done last week. It's been shipped off to Florida to APCO, and it looks like that'll be going to the FCC next week. So around December the 8th, we should be able to cut our 5-site zone, optimize that, and run with 9 sites, and our coverage should definitely improve then. And that's all I have at the moment.
Any other questions on the radios?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Corley.
Yes, this is more of a comment than a question. I was on the Region 39. Region 39 is the group that the FCC recognizes as governing the use of the 700 and 800 meg frequencies within our state. Back many more years than I would like to acknowledge, I convened that group and was the first chairman. Would like to recognize that Mr. Rogers was appointed to the licensing review committee for both the 700 and 800 meg review committees. So we congratulate him on that appointment at the recent meeting this past week of the Region 39 group.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Anything else, anyone?
Mr. Chairman.
I was going to say,
Mr. Gammon.
This is not necessarily a hug and love night, but I want to compliment the work that's been done on this, the concentration and the focus. It's no small undertaking that's went on, and I know Commissioner Gurley knows that, and the rest of them. But you don't always get patted on the back. But I got to tell you, we've had some hard rows to hoe here, but I'm going to tell you something. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
I believe Commissioner P.
Yeah, I've got a question or two for Peter. First of all, I've been seeing some of the updates from the fire departments, and I appreciate your work there. But I want to see if you can give me an answer of when will we be 100% complete, and if you will, give me a timeline on that.
So originally, when the plan was passed, it was looking at December, and that kind of got moved to January. But based on the sheriff's office reserve vehicle status, I honestly think it's going to push us to the middle of January. And with that being said, when everything's said and done, that would mean all our infrastructure has been completed, our dispatch is completed, and all our mobile vehicles have been outfitted, and that includes all their base stations and the schools are outfitted. So right now, I think it's looking around the middle of January.
So you're saying the schools will also be completed, base stations, and all the portables will be given to the school personnel by that time?
Yes, sir. So like I said, we're working with the vendor to schedule the base stations, and we're presently preparing the remaining portables that go to the schools to be deployed in the next coming weeks.
So December 15th. Good. Thank you.
January, final January.
January. Okay. Not as good, but okay.
Now, if everything's expected, as expected, like we're looking at around the week of the 8th of December, we'll be up running 9 sites. So right now we're just presently 4. We'll be going to the 9 sites. 10, of course, will be later in the year towards June. But everything's really going to kick in when we flip the switch on those 5 other sites.
All right. Do you want to elaborate on some of the problems that Captain Rose was talking about?
Oh, so they're still transitioning where they're using the old system and the new system. So their audio is not always the great, because if they're using part of the old system, it gets patched over to the new system. So you're trying to take AM radio and convert it over to FM stereo. And the clarity is not always there, so they're still struggling with some of that. But like I keep emphasizing, the more that the trunking radios are used, the clearer it's going to be, because there's more trunking users transmitting and using the system where it doesn't have to go through the patch in the old system. And then when we start doing the renovations at EMS and the Sheriff's Office, that will pull them off the old system and over onto the new system.
As you're driving around the county now, and I'm sure you are still testing, how are the tests looking? Are they better than what we expected, or about what we were seeing before?
Well, it's still the same, because we're still running with those 4 sites.
All right. Thank you, Peter.
You're welcome.
Okay, sir.
Sir, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Elam. Safety and health. Thank you, sir.
For the month of October 2020, you have a total of 18 incidences. The accident frequency for the calendar year to date is 137. On your OSHA log summary, total recordables is 98, restricted day claims is 56, lost day claims is 23, and other recordables is 19. On the job, next page on the job injury claims, year to date you see 137 compared to 228 for 2019 and 227 for 2018. Next page you see on the job injury incurred dollars. For the year 2020 you see 713, 2019 is 415, 2018 is 526. Now, these are estimated dollars. It's not the actual dollars that's paid out for the claims. And what I would like to point out in this graph is we have talked to Collins & Company, who's our third-party administrator. As you can see, for the last 4 months, there's a large climb in the incurred dollars. And they had somebody that they hired in that started doing this report, and they used a different scale. So that's why you see a big difference in what you see last year. So we're trying to figure out which one's the better scale, because as you can tell on those incurred dollars, the accidents are very similar, but they're putting in a higher number of incurred dollars this year compared to the last 2 years. And then on the last page, you have the cause of injuries. You have the Board of Education, there were 8. County General, there was 10. For the County General, you had 3 for the Sheriff's Department, 2 for EMS, 1 for Juvenile Detention Center, 1 for the Correctional Works Center, 1 for PAWS, 1 for Solid Waste, and 1 for Finance, for a total of 10. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Any questions on the report?
Yes, Mr. Elam?
Yes, sir.
Phillips?
We had a total of 10 recordable accidents. Is that what you said?
10 for county general, yes, sir.
For the county as a whole, how many did we have?
As a whole, there was 18.
And 8 of them were in the Board of Education?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Other questions? Do we have a motion to approve the report?
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Phillips, to have a second?
Second.
We have the second.
Second.
Mr. P., call the roll.
Mr. Gurley?
Yes.
Mr. Gammon?
Yes.
Mr. Sharino?
Yes.
Mr. Rather?
Yes.
Mr. P?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, just a second, I would like to wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving. Appreciate all the work that you do for this county. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, Recovery Court report. It's reading.
As you can see, our report has changed just a little bit. It's a little bit lengthier, but includes a lot of our intake and discharge data as far as how many new participants were brought into the program, as well as how many people graduated versus terminated. In the month of October, we had 9 new participants admitted to our programming. There were 2 graduates and 2 people who were terminated. More important than any of the data that you're going to read is I want to let you know that in the last 7 days, participants in our program have brought into this world 3 brand new baby boys, all of which were born drug-free, and all of which will be able to remain with their families because of that. So the work that we are doing in our community because of the money and the funding that you all provide us is keeping families together. They're in the community and they're working and they're paying their taxes. Also this month, we had 2 participants, one of which just gave birth, who have worked diligently to get their driver's license back. I don't know if any of you have lost your license or have someone in your family or your circle who have lost their license, but once you lose it, it's very difficult to get back. And that has made both of those individuals capable of going out and getting a job and getting back and forth to that job. We also had a female participant who for many months has not had any visitation or any contact with her children. And because of the hard work that she has put in our recovery court program, the courts have now allowed her visitation with her children and is working towards reunification with that family as well. I know that we come to you guys and we ask for a lot of money. We come and we ask for a lot of support. But I want you to know that it is paying off. Members of our community are single-handedly reaping the rewards because it's costing us less as a community to have these individuals working and living amongst us than it would be to have them at 940 or at the workhouse. So I appreciate all of your support.
Okay, any questions anyone may have?
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I want to compliment Trish. Since she's been here, she hit the ground running, of course, but just recently in what's the name of the magazine?
VIP.
The VIP magazine. There's a real nice picture of her and an article about her program and how well she's doing. She's a rising star in the community. It had all the women that were doing extraordinary things in their respective fields, and you brought a lot of honor and respect to Rutherford County for being highlighted in that VIP section. So congratulations.
Yeah.
Welcome.
And she had to give a report this evening just to the commissioners. Everybody else left. They've all gone.
Yeah, I know, last one.
They all went home
Sorry.
to cook their turkey, I guess. I don't know. But,
Okay, the best for
but
last.
you're sort of like these professional football players. They played to an empty stadium tonight, but you got all the commissioners that are here tonight and appreciate everything you do.
We'll get Mr. Sandlin put some cutouts back there to fill up the...
Any question? Any questions? Commissioner Rather?
Well, I don't have a question, I have a statement. I talked earlier about a good friend of mine losing his son. That was his second son he lost. So the work you do as much as I applaud that, and I certainly applaud it wholeheartedly, I also hope the guys and gals that are making the right decisions and working the program and striving to do better and be productive, I applaud them much more. But that doesn't take away from what I applaud with you and the work you're doing, because you're giving them hope and a reason to make the decisions they are. So I applaud you, your team, and I applaud those folks that are making those decisions.
Thank you, sir. Any other? Mr. Sereno.
Very good open house, and there's wonderful different sections. You tour a good deal.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Do we have a motion to approve the report?
So moved.
We have the motion to approve. Do we have the second?
Second.
I think we had several seconds there. Call the roll.
Commissioner Sereno? Mr. P?
Yes.
Mr. Gammon?
Yes.
Mr. Reither?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you. Appreciate that report. I do also want to say that we always have at every one of our committee meetings like this, we have a representative from the EMT with us and has stayed here for the entire meetings back here with us. And that is so appreciative that they're here with us, and that is a very important part, I think, that know that they're on the floor with us. Other business? Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, do we have an EMT here because we're kind of getting older and they're concerned about us?
We're so important. They want to make sure that we're taken care of and whatever. I don't question. I like it. I mean, I appreciate them being here. Commissioner Gammon?
Can I make a comment real quick on that, Mr. Chairman? On that same subject, Director Hudgens asked if that would be permissible. He wanted to do this and have one at each meeting because he cares about us, and just in the event that something happened, somebody fell out, stroke, you never know what happens in the next step and what God brings you. So it's good to have somebody here. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to say, I had another comment, but I'm going to say I like it personally. And I mean, it's very thoughtful and wise for that to happen. Should have been doing it a long time ago. But the only thing I wanted to compliment at this point, and like I said, I guess the holidays are upon us, but I don't know who made that Army Strong, chest hair coffee, but it was good. That's all I know to say.
All right. This is our meeting before Thanksgiving. Hope everybody has a nice Thanksgiving. I'm just glad we're not like Texas where you can only have 8 at your family gathering. But I noticed they said you could have 30 at a funeral. So I understand in Texas that they are having a lot of wakes for their pet turkey Tom. And they're only asking that you bring a side dish when you come for the wake. And that's the only thing they're doing there. If there's no other business, I call this meeting adjourned.